Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Pinpointe Unfiltered, where we tell it like it is in the real estate world. I'm Rachel.
And I'm Josh, and today we are diving into the hottest topic in New York City real estate right now. All the renters are going batshit crazy about the idea that there are no longer going to be any more broker fees. This episode, we're going to break down the truths, the false, everything in between, how landlords are trying to pull the wool over everyone's eyes, in my opinion. And
Landlords?
yeah, well, they're the only ones that ever win anything. So,
Fair enough, fair enough. I feel like they might argue that point with rent stabilization and but sure.
but then look at rent. Well, that's another podcast episode.
It's
But
another
look into
topic.
rent stabilization and the rumors of landlords hoarding apartments. So yeah, um, my stance: landlords will always win. And this idea of transparency that Street Easy has with its sister company Zillow, they are not the saviors of the real estate market in New York as they try to be the champions of some BS. They are more what they're the puppet masters. That's a
Well, I
good
don't know
one.
about, yeah, maybe they are puppet masters because they are definitely pulling some strings behind the scenes with city council. City council definitely thinks that they are saving renters and affordability in New York City, and in reality, they're not. And we're going to dive into all of that in just a bit. It's just, we want to talk about what the law states, what city council and Street Easy are putting forth as the narrative based on that law, and what we're going to break down how it's going to actually affect you, the renter, in reality.
And of course, like every other episode, we're going to give it to you unfiltered, the real deal, straight from the hip.
Straight shit.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so buckle up. Here we go. So let's talk about what the law actually claims, right? It's called the Fair Act because it's supposed to be fair. And the basic principle is that the hiring party pays the fee. So if you don't hire the broker, then you shouldn't be the one paying the broker fee. Totally makes sense to me. Sure. It also states that landlords and brokers must now disclose any fees in rental listings and in agreements. And renters are no longer required to pay a broker fee as a condition of signing a lease. So let's start breaking this down. Josh, were renters ever required to pay a broker fee as a condition of signing a lease?
It's situational.
Mm-hmm.
You have some apartments that are like legitimately no fee apartments that, the landlords were paying, the broker, a portion of a possible commission,
Mm-hmm.
usually dedicated to like a month, like about a month. If you think about percentage wise, that's about seven and
It's
a half percent, maybe
8.3, I think,
um,
if I did the math
compared
correctly.
to let's say the maximum fee that you could like charge a client, which would be 15%. So even on those instances, you know, I hate saying it like this because obviously I'm an agent and they're like, oh, you're the devil, but agents were losing agents lose money on those deals potentially.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I'm okay. I want to help out every, tenant. I'm not, money hungry. Um, but the issue, I guess, like the hardest thing to explain to people when this whole idea of the Fair Act started, like, coming about was that the landlords are not going to lose money on this. They're not just going to give money
Well,
away.
that's I want to break that down in a bit, but I just want to talk point by point first. So the the renters that are, they're saying that we're required to pay a broker fee as a condition of signing a lease, meaning if you sign a lease, you have to pay a broker fee. I feel like that's a little bit inaccurate, right? You're saying that everyone was beholden to paying a fee. Obviously, you just discussed that there are some situations where there was no fee, but the only time I would say a renter was absolutely forced to pay a broker fee is if they signed uh, a renter broker agreement, which I haven't had one ever. I don't know when's the last time you had a renter sign an agreement? Because basically, and you can tell the people, I've gotten stiffed. Have you gotten stiffed? You've shown people apartments, gotten them to sign the lease, and then they just dipped and never paid you the fee, right?
Yes, I've found people apartments, did most of the legwork, and then when they hear what my fee is supposed to be, they'll go around and like find the landlord on their own and rent the apartment behind my back. Yeah, it's as far as that first question, what was the last time when I first got into the real estate business, it was very different. It was
Mm-hmm.
very, very different. Street Easy wasn't a thing yet. Zillow wasn't a thing yet. Um, we would have people kind of sign a registration card, and within that registration card, there was like verbiage that would state, "We find you an apartment, we get a fee," um, which led to some, heated battles sometimes in front of buildings, especially when people they stopped wanting to come to the office first for a consultation and they just wanted to meet directly at whatever apartment they inquired about. When that started happening, you kind of could see the change in the real estate. The real estate agent really became more of a middleman,
Mm-hmm.
and clients started feeling like they had just as much knowledge, if not more, than the real estate agent. And they started, metaphorically pumping out their chest and pushing back on the status quo. So yeah, that was, we call those the dark ages, right? The golden
Yeah.
ages of real estate. Street Easy comes along. Things really start to change. The internet really, really blows up. Social media really blows up. Things are vastly different, but essentially, clients were always supposed to pay the fee. The only time in the dark ages that the landlord were paying fees were when things weren't moving, or in very, very down times, like the dead of winter.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the only time you saw like a no fee apartment in the middle of summer, there was something wrong with that apartment.
All right. So basically, renters weren't really forced to pay a fee as a condition of signing a lease, but now we'll see. It'll be a little bit more clear if and when the law takes effect. And by the way, guys, it's going to take effect in June, unless the lawsuit against it right now. REBNY, the Real Estate Board of New York, has a lawsuit against it, claiming it violates First Amendment rights. I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not going to get into those details of whether that lawsuit has merit. But we're operating as if the law is going to still be in effect, or still take place starting in June, and I think it's mid-June. So the next line is that landlords and brokers must now disclose any fees in rental listings and agreements. I don't know about you, Josh, but as someone that values transparency, I'm all about it. I'd rather tell clients up front, this is how much you have to pay. And correct me if I'm wrong, but this is kind of how we operate. Hey, this is the fee. Some apartments might have different fees because maybe a landlord's paying a portion of it. There's different ways about it, but basically, if the industry can now be upfront with everybody, I'm all about it.
Yeah,
What do you think?
it's my standard practice. To off. Hey, my name is Josh. Nice to meet you. Here's this apartment. It's my standard practice to like, hey, this is what the fee's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
This is what we project it to be. And
Mm-hmm.
obviously, if you continue to work, with me, and we see more than one apartment, which for the most part, 95% of my clients we have to see multiple apartments, multiple days of showing. I'm very clear with, hey, if we're going to see this next apartment, this is what the fee for this next apartment's going to be. Never that we get to the finish line and then I give you like
Surprise!
an invoice. And it's like, hey, guess what? You owe me all this money.
Yeah, but I think there are a lot of brokers that do that, which is probably why there's so much pushback and why this law, has finally gotten to where it is. Because there are a lot of brokers that are just like, oh, there's no fee. And then all of a sudden at the end they're signing a lease. By the way, I'm not going to hand you over the lease until you pay me 15%. And then of course there's, those very few cases that obviously get a lot of press where I think it was not last summer, but the summer before, there was a broker that charged like 25% fee on a rent stabilized, which is outrageous. Like, that's
I
just
was just reading
insane.
something on Reddit about that, like again recently, where this like some lady was saying, yeah, they charge 30% broker fee. I'm like,
Get out of here. Those people deserve to like get their license revoked. All right. So then the biggest issue I think with this law is that it states that the hiring party is going to pay the fee. So if we as Pinpointe, right, we advertise an apartment on StreetEasy, right? Because StreetEasy is just an advertising platform. It is nothing else but an advertising platform that takes a shit ton of money from brokers to put apartments on their website, right?
I'm
And
not
the
gonna say
reason that
anything about
they
Street
have us,
Easy.
nah, I'm gonna say it. They have us by the balls, right? Because that's where the renters are. All the renters are going to StreetEasy. If there was no renters going to StreetEasy, we wouldn't have to pay them exorbitant amounts. But that's fine. If we advertise a property for a landlord, this law is saying that we technically were hired by the landlord. That's technically not true because of the way that New York City operates with open listings, but let's just say that it is, right? Okay, so now we're advertising a property for a landlord. That means with this law, the landlord is going to have to pay us the fee. But who's actually paying at the end?
It's always gonna be the renter,
Yes.
regardless.
This so proponents of the law, city council members, StreetEasy, the media, they have all been saying that this counter argument is a false narrative and fear mongering. And I'm going to explain to you why it's not. Because it's basic math. It's basic. It's simple. Okay. Right now in politics, everyone's afraid of tariffs, right? I'm not gonna take sides here, but everybody, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, and how good or bad you are at math, everyone understands that when we add tariffs, producers now have to pay more money. Producers of products have to pay more money to buy the supplies that is required to make those things, right? So now it's more expensive. And every single person that I know, and I've seen all over the internet, knows for a fact that those producers aren't eating the cost. They're going to pass it on to the consumer, which is why everyone is afraid and upset about tariffs, because it's going to make things for everybody else more expensive, right? This is the same logic. This is the exact same logic when it comes to a landlord now has to pay something that they were never paying before. It's going to make the cost of maintaining and renting apartments for them more expensive. What on earth makes anyone think they're going to eat that cost? They're just going to pass it on to the consumer. In this case, the consumer is the renter.
So I lost a tooth the other day, and I was just praying
Were you
that the
playing hockey?
tooth fairy is gonna come and drop, a little 50 piece right under the pillow.
Yo!
Still no 50 piece.
50 piece. Are you kidding me? You know how much tooth goes for? So I read the other
I
day
don't have
in
children.
an
I don't know.
article. Yeah, no, I read an article the other day that the cost, the tooth fairy nationwide, the cost of a tooth has gone down to like $5 and change. Okay, let me tell you that we paid for a tooth recently. Okay, I don't know, in the past month or so we paid.
You
I think,
mean the tooth fairy came?
well, Layla's not here watching this, so, and I don't I don't think she's going to. So we could call it what it is. Layla lost a tooth, and I think we paid like $10 for that tooth.
Look, inflation is a bitch.
Right. Right. So things are getting more expensive, but because people are tight on money, the tooth fairy is now paying a little bit less. Right? That's what this article was about. It was kind of hilarious. But yeah, if you lose a tooth, boy, you should be getting $5 for that shit. Not 50 cents.
Well, the Fair Act is the tooth fairy
Yeah.
of the real estate community right now. And people are expecting that this Fair Act is going to put money back into their pockets. And the only people that are going to have more money in their pockets, are landlords. And
Yep. Why?
I might be going off script a bit, but before I forget, I also feel that it's going to really, really benefit just the big brokerages.
Mm. Why do you think that?
Big brokerages could sustain buildings and leases and have it's easier for them to attract all the landlords.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm a landlord, I'm landlord X, and I'm like, hey, I have to pay, a brokerage. Why would I go with a brokerage that has no following, that's small, when I could just give
You're
it to
describing us. You're
pretty
describing Pinpointe.
much, um, when I could just give it to one of the big, I'm not going to mention the big boys' names, but I could give it to one of the bigger companies. Um, when you deal with the bigger companies, you're forced to deal with whatever rules, prices that they kind of set forward.
Mm-hmm.
As a small company, the benefit of us and like what keeps, a lot of small companies, in business is the fact that they can negotiate on some
Mm-hmm.
of these fees.
They also get a direct line of communication to the owners of the company, right? We're the co-founders of this company. If you work with us as a renter or you work with us as a landlord, you get us. You don't get some Joe Schmo agent that's on somebody else's team that has never even met anybody on the executive team of the giant corporation, right? And those people are just going to be hopping back, from one brokerage to the next. But I want to bring it back real quick to to passing the cost of the fee onto the renter. Okay, so how does that happen?
So,
They add that into. Sorry, I was gonna say they add it into the rent, right? So landlords, they pay a certain amount of a fee. What did you say that was earlier?
you broke it down to the exact amount. I rounded it about,
So
but
it's
it's about what you said, 8.3. So
yeah.
eight
So
point
a
three
month they
percent
pay
of
us a
the
month fee.
annual rent.
Yeah. So it's a month fee and it comes out to 8.3 of the annual, right? That's right. Um, so, and renters usually pay up to 15% of the annual, which comes out to 1.8 months of rent. Okay. So, yes, it definitely costs renters more money. Um, but again, with smaller firms like us, there's always room for negotiation. With bigger firms, like Josh said, there is no room. The rules are the rules, and that's what you have to pay. So when a landlord says, okay, now I have to pay an extra 8.333, whatever it is, percent per unit, I'm going to add that on to the cost of the rent, right? So now they're splitting it up. Instead of paying it up front, you're adding it to your monthly rent. And what happens when you go to renew your lease, Josh?
You renew from a higher price.
You're paying that fee again.
I use a $2,500, kind of example
Mm-hmm.
where a $2,500 no fee apartment is really equivalent to about a $2,200 fee apartment.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when your year is up, instead of renewing at $2,200, so your next year could be 2,250, 2,300, whatever. You're starting at 2,500 already,
Yes, sir.
and it's just going to keep going. So then, when people complain about how these prices are outrageous and unsustainable,
Affordability.
how many years do you think it's going to take for that $2,200 fee apartment to get to 3,000 compared to the $2,500 getting to 3,000 and to continuing?
Yes, you can't compare those things. And if you look at it even now, right, or before this law was, any no fee apartment, like you said, is going to cost more per month than a fee apartment. But here's the kicker: the law isn't in effect yet, and landlords are already doing it. They're already
Yeah,
saying, you
I
know what?
think we started seeing that probably it was like almost 3 months ago.
Yeah, like right after the law was
What was
passed,
it was November when the law passed, I think.
or just
October, November.
maybe December. I don't remember. But again,
whatever.
3 months ago. Let's just call it 3 months
But it
ago.
was about 3 months ago where we started seeing, we started getting updates, and it's like, oh, that apartment that was on the market 2 weeks ago just went up like $300, but now it's no fee. Yeah, that sounds great, but 300 times that by 12,
Right.
that's an extra $3,600.
Right, because a landlord isn't just going to take this opportunity to be like, well, I'm just going to take my money back. I'm just going to raise it by 8.33% or whatever that exact number is. They're going to be like, oh, I'm going to raise it by 10% or I'm going to raise it by 12%. And I'm going to take extra. I'm going to pocket the rest, which is exactly what your point was at the very beginning, that landlords always win.
Now, Rachel,
Landlords
you're a
landlords are trying
renter.
to make money. I'm a renter.
You're a renter. You have a life. You have a family. You're getting married. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
If I told you you need to start your life and like plan for it financially as like a full blown adult, but we're gonna add an extra almost $4,000 yearly to your already high
Fuck you.
cost of living.
How about that?
That's what you have to break it down to the meat
Yo,
and the potatoes.
but these renters believe city council, believe, Street Easy and all the advertisements that are saying like, oh, we're trying to make it more affordable. Bitch, you just made it way more expensive. And nobody's seeing that. And everybody's like, oh, well, you're just saying that because you don't want to lose your job. No, I'm not going to lose my job. I'm not dependent on the one renter or few renters that don't want to pay my fee. That's fine. I also work with landlords. I also do sales. You're not going to kill me personally. You're going to hurt my company. Yes. But at the end of the day, what makes our company ours and what really is Pinpointe is we tell people the truth. We are not fucking lying to you.
And the truth is, if this act goes in, for every apartment that the average New Yorker is in, and the average New Yorker spends about 3 years in an apartment before they move, 3 years at about $4,000 per year extra, that's $12,000 in 3 years that you wouldn't have paid if we just kept. Maybe we don't need to keep the laws the way they are. Maybe we could just work them out a little bit better. I don't know. I'm not smart enough to like figure that stuff out. But I am smart enough to realize that $12,000 per apartment is a lot. Since I've met you, you've lived in 3 different apartments, right? 1, 2, 3. Yeah.
Well,
No, now it's
met me.
4.
Yeah.
4 different apartments since I met you. Yeah, imagine how much money
In 8 years.
you would have lost if the rent was about 10% more per apartment. I charged you a fee.
I wouldn't be able. Yeah.
We're still friends.
We're more than friends. Shit, I go to your mom's house for Thanksgiving. I think we're family at this point.
I'm not a bad guy. Like, I'm not out here trying to.
No, but I did negotiate that fee. You asked for you wanted to charge 15%, and I said, nah, give me a discount. I want less, and you went down to 12.
And look, like I said, because I was working for a company, I had to start at a certain point. I have no choice. Hey, this is what the standard is. But you know what? We're a small company, so we could negotiate a little bit. All renters kind of feel that we are the enemy because they see us. That's the thing. They see us because we're there showing the apartments, and they're oh, but what? How can you get
but
all
we
this
also
money?
talked about it a little bit on the last episode. Brokers have a shitty reputation because most of them are shitty, right? So yes, they do look at us like the devil. And you and I and everybody in our firm has to work really hard to prove that we are not the devil. Yeah. I mean, we were talking about paying that fee, right? How much of that actually goes into your pocket? I mean, the brokerage takes a part, right? And you don't get paid. You, me, the brokerage doesn't get paid. Any agent doesn't get paid until that fee is paid, right? So we are doing all this work up front for people.
And it could be a month,
hoping
2 months before
that we get
person
paid for it.
Gets paid. I don't even want to talk about COVID times.
And if the landlord pays, we're getting paid several months later, right? We're working with a client for 1 or 2 months, depending on how long they're looking, right? And if a landlord pays, then they can pay 30 days, 60 days, 90 days.
Not pay.
Not pay.
Oh.
I mean, that's when we're talking about how the little companies can go under, right? Because, if we're waiting for a landlord to pay us, we're not gonna be able to pay our bills in the meantime because, they were like, oh, we'll pay you 30 days from the day the lease starts, right? And let's say we help somebody find an apartment and they sign the lease a month a month and a half before the lease starts. So that means we're waiting that whole time and then another 30 or 60 days until we get paid. Yeah, that's a terrible, terrible thing, and I hope it doesn't really happen that way. But we'll make do. We'll roll with the punches, right?
But honestly, like just to like other side of the token, there are some
Mm-hmm.
landlords, wonderful ones, that pay quickly, and
Within a
that's
couple weeks,
great.
yeah.
I love them. Um, I get it. Like running a business
Yeah, of
is
course.
difficult, and they're running businesses, and you know what? It's all about the bottom dollar, and it's about the numbers.
Absolutely.
And I feel, and it's funny that they use fair as the word for
The
this.
acronym that they made, yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, my mom used to say there's no such thing as fair, right? No,
There isn't.
fair, there's
Life
no
isn't
such
fair.
thing. It's not. And it is unfair that people can charge whatever for someone's living, like, shelter. But that's where we're at. And people have to kind of, stop looking at it in a fair, unfair way and kind of look at what the numbers are and think of it more like a business.
Mm-hmm.
I understand. For us, it's easy to see it because it's all these renters, all these buyers, sellers. So we're just going through it all day. So we view looking at apartments,
Mm-hmm.
looking at homes very differently than the people who are purchasing and renting. And I understand that when we're trying to tell them, like, yeah, you can't look at it emotionally, you can't think about it morally. It's a bottom dollar, especially in New York City,
It's a
where
business. It's business.
it's such big business. It's not even a business. It's big business.
Yep. Yep.
And in big business, the guys on top are not trying to relinquish or shorten the gap of their profits. They're like,
For
no,
sure.
this is our profit margin. It has to stay this, regardless what the numbers are. We need to keep making this or more.
Yeah, and that I wouldn't even say that that's just limited to the big dogs, right? I would say that's even more prominent for smaller landlords, right? Because they are really reliant on that income, right? They're not going they're not going to eat that fee. They just can't. It just doesn't make sense, right? As unfortunate as it is, housing isn't free. To build a house or an apartment building costs money. The supplies and the labor continues to go up year over year. Okay. The cost to maintain these properties costs money, and that goes up year over year. Why? Because inflation. It always happens, right? And then, of course, tariffs. Let's not go into that beast. But to expect that the rent isn't going to go up, right? When you add additional costs, that's just ludicrous to me. Like
Now,
you're not making any sense.
we're just talking about the rent going up because they're going to add the broker fee to it. Now, add on pet fee, pet deposit,
Oh yeah, that's
all
a
these
lot.
other
The amenity fees for
the
luxury
amenity
buildings.
fees.
Woo!
You went from I go back to the $2,500, right? You went
No
from a
apartments,
$2,500.
$2,500. Don't give anybody false hope.
Just saying, it's an easy number.
Yes.
You went from the $2,500 no fee apartment to an extra 200 for your pet, your amenities fee. You're pushing $3,000 when you could have easily went and paid Rachel, myself, a small fee, a small one-time fee, and get to know us, get to love us, become part of the family, guys.
Yeah. We keep our clients as family.
For peanuts, I'm not gonna say peanuts because that's
No, but it's
that's an
not peanuts. It's
exaggeration.
it's
But
our value, right? Like one thing that the NAR settlement that affected like sales
Rachel,
nationwide,
what's
right? That
NAR for people that don't know those terms?
the National Association of Realtors, that is a trade organization that most realtors across the country have to pay money for too,
On a
to get
side note,
access to the
audience,
MLS.
Rachel does that a lot. She throws out all these like acronyms really quickly, assuming everybody knows what they are.
My
So
bad.
tell the people what these things are just in case.
My bad. You're right. So anyway, so there, I'm sure people following this, and if not, there was a lawsuit of the Department of Justice. I was going to say DOJ, but the Department of Justice was suing the National Association of Realtors and a lot of the big firm brokerages that nationwide for antitrust violations, saying that agents, realtors, and brokerages, and the National Association of Realtors were conspiring to keep commissions at 6% for sales. They ended up in a settlement, blah, 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 blah. Basically, what it means now, it's similar to what's happening here. The buyer is now going to be responsible for paying their broker, their agent, instead of the seller paying. And the whole point I'm bringing this up is because one of the big things that they changed in this in the settlement is that realtors are no longer calling it commission, they're calling it compensation. Why? Because should we not be compensated for the work that we do? When you call it a commission, there's a connotation that make people seem to think that it's extra. This isn't extra. We don't get paid a salary. We get paid a percentage of the overall cost of something that we're helping people to get, right? Whether it's to buy or to rent or to sell. Just like an attorney can take a percentage if they help you win a lawsuit.
Pay an attorney
So
to read
it's,
the same piece of paper that you could read,
well,
but
there's difference, right? Because the attorneys you could pay by the hour, but then there's attorneys you pay on contingency, right? Like if you're suing for you did a slip and fall, right? And you're suing the place where you slipped because it's their fault. You pay that attorney on a contingency, so they only make money if you make money. They're getting a percentage of your lawsuit winnings.
pretty much like a
Winnings
broker.
is inaccurate, but yes. So that's the whole point. Is that what I'm trying to say is I like the fact that we're now going to call it compensation, right? Because we are putting in a lot of work to help people find apartments. Okay, yes, if we have an advertisement, then somebody's calling us directly. But do we just ever just show them that one apartment?
I try not to. That's not a good
It's not
agent.
it's not a
Um,
good agent. No, we ask, we qualify them, make sure that they're qualified renters, that they're actually going to get approved for something. We ask what they're looking for. We ask what they're not looking for, and we try to make the most of their time as well as ours, and show them as many apartments as we can in that one showing. And if those aren't working, then we try showing them other things, right? Because we're trying to help somebody.
Also, like I want to go to the fact we're helping them. Yes, there is so much that happens before I even get a phone call from a client for me to
Mm-hmm.
be able to actually help someone. That the experience, the build up, the
Mm-hmm.
relationships that I've built with landlords, the knowledge that
Mm-hmm.
I've accumulated over the many years of renting. That's what you really are like. That's what you should be paying for, or think about. That's what you should be compensating the agent. Not that I opened a door for you. The door opening is the very easiest part of
Yeah,
that
anybody can do
journey,
that. That's not what you're paying us for.
but that's how some people
Yeah.
see it. They're, oh, why
Well,
should I pay you so much
so
for
let's
just
explain
opening the
why.
door? And so it's not about me opening the door. It's about me having a relationship with the landlord so I know what doors to actually open. That's kind of what I try to explain to people. Like the ad is one thing, what it took to get to the point of me placing that ad.
Yep. So there's an old adage that says like it took me 30 seconds to do something, but you're paying me for the 30 years of experience so that I'm able to do it in 30 seconds. So when somebody comes to us, right, if we ask them a bunch of questions to qualify them, right? So we can also know what they like, what they don't like, what what landlords are going to have the properties that they want, what landlords are going to be able to qualify them if they're, let's say they don't make exactly 40 times the rent, but they have really good credit. Some landlords don't give a shit and they say you have to make 40 times, you have to have credit of 725. But then we know that there are landlords that are a little bit more flexible on that. But if you don't use a broker, you're just going to apply and you're going to spend $20 on each application fee and you're just going to get rejected. And sure, it's $20 here, $20 there. It's just $20. It's not the entire cost of a fee. But the stress that you're going through every time you get rejected, the time that you have to now start your search all over again. And by the time that happens, the other apartments that you went to see by yourself, they're no longer available. Now you're getting closer to your move date and you're running out of time. Why?
You could do that maybe in the winter. Can't do that in summertime when things are going crazy.
But why waste your time with that when you can have someone that does this day in and day out? And another thing that I was thinking earlier, Josh, is relationships, right? Real estate is all about relationships, and we have relationships with landlords, right? So when a client goes to see, or anybody, a renter goes to see an open house over the weekend, right? You've been to New York open houses on the weekends, they are packed, especially in the summertime.
Yeah, right? It's nice. It's nice to go out.
But it's also like, nice apartment. People want it, and open houses are usually packed. So you want to put in an application. So you submit your application over the weekend. You think you're the only one that submitted that application? How many people were there? And you were just there for 5 minutes, 10 minutes. How many people have seen it in that hour or 2 hours that it had the open house? How many people saw it during the week? Now, Monday morning, the landlord opens at 10 a.m. They have a stack, either physical or digital, of applications. Do you think they're going to go one by one? Or we call them, or any broker that has a relationship would call them and say, hey, my client so-and-so applied. It's a really good application. They're qualified. Take a look. What do you think the landlord's going to do? They're going to waste their time going by random applications, or they're going to be like, you know what? Pinpointe Group has always sent me really good applicants. They end up renewing their leases. We never have any issues with them, whether it's us or somebody else. That relationship takes your application from the middle or the bottom of the pile and automatically puts it on the top. That's not a guarantee that you're going to get approved or that that's even going to happen, but the chances are a lot higher.
It puts
because we
better
have
cards
that
in your favor.
And we've worked for years to have these relationships, and that works in your benefit as a renter. Otherwise, you're just one person in a pile.
Yeah, but again, I go back to, we are the devil.
We are the devil, absolutely.
We are the devil. Why believe the devil that you can see and think that the tooth fairy is going to save you?
Yes. No, I think if you put the tooth fairy versus the devil, the tooth fairy definitely looks better. It's nicer. It's prettier.
Yeah, it sounds good.
She gives you money.
The name is good. Fair. Like, are you kidding me? That name it just makes me feel good.
Yeah.
But when you look at what's going to happen on a broader scope in the next, like I said, give it like 3 years. Give it 3 years and let people see where the market really is and how much money they're losing in rent. It's going to change. Like, it's going to make people think like, oh, what? Hindsight sucks. It's 2020, but there's nothing you could do about it. Look at other current situations that we're in. Like, oh, yeah, we did this, but now I wish we wouldn't have.
Yeah, for sure. But, like you said, hindsight, 2020. There's one more thing that I want to talk about before we wrap up.
Hit me with your best shot. Oh, that's another thing, people. I will randomly break out into song.
Oh, I was making breakfast earlier, and I started singing head, shoulders, knees and toes, knees and toes. I don't know where it came from because our children are not that young that we have to sing that song. I was literally just making my eggs, and
it's that you're getting so old. You're trying to remind yourself.
No, it's probably because my knees have been hurting for days. One of the things that I want to talk about before we wrap up is this transparency thing, right? In regards to the FAIR Act. How many listings do you think are going to disappear from StreetEasy? Sorry?
A ton of listings. There's no way. The fact that we have to pay for StreetEasy, and if you're making less per deal, as a business, I'm just thinking business-wise, hey, I'm going to make probably close to 50% less on this deal and still have an overhead of, advertising, transportation, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, there's going to be a ton of apartments that I'm probably not going to advertise. And then what?
But also, I remember that if we advertise, that means the landlord, is paying the broker, right? Landlords aren't going to just start paying fees for every apartment. They're going to be like, okay, we'll pay the fee for this one, maybe
Yeah,
not this one, maybe not all of
that's
these, right? So all of those are going to be hidden, right? All the majority, I think, of units are now going to be hidden from the renter's view unless they use a broker. Another thing that's going to happen, and at least I know that this is something that we've talked about, and I hope that we actually do it, and I hope that more brokers do it because it actually protects brokers, is renters are going to have to now start signing agreements with brokers and say, hey, if we show you X, Y, and Z properties and you get approved and sign a lease for one of those, you're going to have to pay us the fee unless it's agreed that, obviously there's going to be fine print, but unless it's agreed that the landlord is going to pay a fee. I think there's also going to be ones where you could say, okay, we're going to show you all these apartments and we're going to make sure that we only show you no fee apartments, but this is our fee in the off chance that you want to see something that is a fee apartment. That's it's totally going to happen where we have clients that are looking at a no fee, something that we advertise that the landlord hired us, right? We advertised it's no fee. They come, they see it, they say, oh, okay, yeah, I like it, whatever, fine. They don't apply yet. Somebody else comes, applies, they get the apartment. This first person comes back saying, hey, I want to apply for that apartment. Sorry, it's gone. But we have another one in the same building or in a sister property or something like that. But unfortunately, the landlord hasn't hired us to market that property. So if you want us to show you, you're going to have to pay that fee. That's what's going to happen, don't you think?
Yeah, and there's going to be a lot of text messaging and emails in all caps from clients angry about.
But they have a right to be angry? But that's what the
Sure.
law is going to do. It's going to make things more expensive for the renter, and it's going to make them livid.
Yeah, and there's going to be more competition for a limited amount of
Of
apartments.
no fee apartments.
Everybody already wants the same apartment. Everybody
Mm-hmm.
wants, good light, nice space, closets, blah, 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 blah. Everybody, that's what people like. So
Mm-hmm.
people are already competitive going after those few apartments. Add that to the fact that, like, oh, now we're going to take a bunch of these apartments out of play because you know what? Someone's not going to get a broker fee on it, and like the client is going to have to pay for it. That's going to limit. It's going to make the selection pool even smaller. It's going to be a roller coaster. It's going to be a whirlwind. I feel it's going to be It's going to be exciting to see what happens. I'm just hoping that the people that we get to talk to, the clients that see this, could actually deal with brokers that are going to want to help them and not
Mm-hmm.
just go after dollar signs. What we're probably going to always keep harping on. We don't treat people like dollar signs. We're about the relationship and being transparent. It's difficult sometimes in this world because we're such a small company and we're telling people things that they're not hearing online. So it makes it seem as if we're the shysters. No, we're not. We're just kind of trying to bring to light what's happening here.
What people aren't telling you. That's the whole point of our podcast, right? What we say, like, what your broker isn't telling you, right? But in this case, it's what city council is not telling you. It's what the media is not telling you. It's what everyone is not telling you.
And honestly, as a broker, why would you want to combat what the clients are saying? Like, you don't want to go into like this relationship with you telling them, no, you're wrong. No, you're wrong. I already start when I meet people like, oh, you want this, this, this. No, you can't have this, 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 because this is what the market is.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, if I'm an agent, you want to stay quiet, but it's different being a co-founder of a company where I have a little bit more, I have a little bit more power. I have a little bit more say on how we're going to conduct business. The buck stops with me. I don't have to there's not anyone that I have to answer to. I discuss with my co-founder, But hey, I'm going to conduct my business the way I want to conduct my business. You cannot force me to. With these other agents that work for these companies, they kind of are, what's the term? They are, what's it? You're pigeon-toed? Is that the term I'm looking for?
I don't know.
Anyway, I'll come back to it. Where you're forced, let's just use that term. You're forced to abide by whatever culture.
Pigeonhole?
Pigeonhole. There you go. That might be it. I'm gonna look that up.
I don't know.
I'm gonna look that up because I want to know better. They are forced to abide by whatever culture is set by the higher ups, and for the most part, the higher ups are setting up a culture of let's get this money, not let's help as many people as we can. It's already extremely expensive in New York and very difficult to survive. I think I mentioned it on our last episode where I'm like, yeah, I feel like I'm an ambassador to New York and I want to help my community. And helping my community isn't taking every single dollar from you and giving you no guidance. That's why I think we get, brokers in general get, they get that light of, shyster where, no, I'm just an angel trying to help you find a beautiful apartment.
I wouldn't say that we're angels, but
speak to my grandmother. She calls me an angel.
My grandmother too, right? But I would say we are more likely to tell you the truth than anyone else. So yes, we still need to make money, but yes, we will lose money to make sure that people are more informed and have all the facts.
I say it all the time. It's not about this first deal that we make. It's about building this relationship for the next deal and the next deal.
Yeah, because we want to be people's brokers throughout their lifetime. We're on this journey with you, right? People have and you and I say this all the time. People have attorneys and accountants that they work with their entire lives, right? Financial advisors, barbers, right? Why would you not have a broker, an agent for your entire life, right? We want to help you find your first rental in New York City, the next one where you don't have roommates, your first solo apartment. Then when you settle down, we'll keep doing the rentals until you're ready to buy. You have a family, need a bigger place. We want to be there for your entire life and help you grow in real estate and in life. And on that note, I think we can wrap up unless there's anything else that you wanted to say.
Yeah, just be careful with that fair word, friends and family. That fair word is always a red flag for me. No, guys, thanks again for listening and accepting my crazy. I appreciate it. And can't wait for the next episode. What are we doing on the next episode, Rach?
Well, I think we're going to talk about the entire rental process and give people tips on, when to start looking, what to look out for, and the entire application process and what to expect and things like that. So stay tuned. We should be dropping it, next week. And I would love to hear from you guys what you thought about this episode, any questions that you have, anything that we maybe missed. Reach out. You can find us on Instagram, LinkedIn. You can go to our website. You can call us. Happy to take phone calls, text, email. We are available
Carrier pigeon?
to you guys. Yeah, carrier pigeon, because, like I said, and like what Josh has said, we are here to help you guys. Any questions you guys have, especially about this law, which is, still murky, definitely reach out. And if you have suggestions on what you want to hear in the next several episodes, let us know.
Sounds good.
Thank you for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next time.
See you on the one train.
Peace.